Hey guys, I just wanted to welcome you back to Therapy Rocks and our segment on staying big. Today we're going to be covering a couple of more of the characteristics of complex PTSD, symptoms of complex PTSD. These are in the appendix at the back of the book, and this is a new copy of the book that has arrived. And again, if you're interested in getting your hands on one of these, just let me know. I am in the process of getting it listed on Amazon so that people can just go right there and order it, but that is not complete yet. So if you're interested, just let me know and leave me your contact information and we'll get this out in the mail to you as soon as possible. So again, we've covered, all the things that we've covered already from this book. The concept of spontaneous age regression as it applies to people who've had childhood trauma and how it shows up in your life and in your relationships. We've covered different emotional parts. We've covered the concept of the attachment to the perpetrator and the most grown-up part. And now we're looking at different symptoms of complex PTSD. And we covered, one or two the last time we were together. And I believe we covered black and white thinking and compulsive behaviors and addictions. So today we're going to talk about reenacting your trauma story in relationships, or just reenacting your trauma. Most of the time it happens in your relationships, but definitely happens in your life. The problem with reenactment, and I really, really get on people about this because it's so important to healing, is that when you are reenacting, you cannot heal. It is not possible. You are stuck on the drama triangle. You may want to look that up. It's Cartman's drama triangle. I just happened to be in my office today, so I happen to have a copy of it. I use it a lot with folks. When you are stuck on the drama triangle, you cannot heal because you are reenacting something. So a quick explanation of Cartman's drama triangle. You can look it up. Karpman. Very helpful. You see there's a rescuer position here, persecutor or perpetrator as I call it, and a victim down here. So when you come from a dysfunctional family system, a family where you were traumatized as a child or your parents were alcoholic or whatever the dysfunction was, the tendency is to get caught living on this triangle. We all visit this triangle once in a while, but the problem is when you live there, you make no traction, you make no headway in your healing. It just is impossible. Let me explain how this might show up in your life and in your relationships. So you might come into your therapist's office and you might say, I can't believe the way my husband treated me. He's disrespectful to me. He makes me feel like I'm worth nothing. He just this, he that, he this, he that. So right now I'm stuck in victim. Poor me. Okay, and this doesn't apply to situations where there's domestic violence. Okay, at least not in the way I'm talking about it. So right now, let's just talk about dysfunctional relationships, not necessarily physically abusive relationships or emotionally or verbally abusive relationships. But most trauma survivors get stuck in victim mode, I call it. And that's also a very little place. Okay, so we can connect it again to the language of parts. So the person that comes in my office and says, my husband's doing this to me and that to me and this to me, I can jump on that triangle as a rescuer, which would not be good. And I could say, I can't believe he's treating you that way. What is wrong with him? How awful for you that that's going on. Well, now I've joined with her. I've hopped on her triangle, and she still has no power. Okay? So when somebody's stuck in victim mode, they always have to have a perpetrator. Okay? There's always got to be a perpetrator. And what they're really doing, because they're little, is they're waiting for someone to come by and rescue them. And most of the time, it's not going to happen. And if a person does come by and rescue you, It's usually not someone you want to be in a relationship with either, because rescuers can be very controlling. And so in order to heal and grow, you've got to take a step off the victim triangle, okay? You've got to take a step off by taking some sort of action. So what I might say to the patient, instead of joining her on the triangle, I might say to her, why don't we spend some time figuring out why you stay in relationship with someone who's treating you so badly? Do you see how that gives her the power back? Some women might get ticked off when I say things like that to them. They might get really angry. But the bottom line is, I'm here to help you, and you can get angry all day long and you'll be sitting on that triangle for decades. Or you can take your power back and realize that you are a grown-up, you have choice, you have a will. Remember that trauma, childhood trauma, can disconnect us from our will, and we need to get reconnected to that will, at least intellectually, to understand that as an adult, we do have choice. Okay? So, this will come up in future talks, but this is the drama triangle, and it's important to study that if you feel like you get stuck in that victim position or that rescuer position. Most people have a starting gate position, and it's usually victim or rescuer. Okay, so there's that. Reenacting happens on the triangle. So reenacting your trauma story in relationships can look like something pretty simple that we've all heard about. You see this woman who keeps engaging in relationships with people that are unavailable. And so it's really just changing seats on the Titanic. A patient of mine shared with me that metaphor, and I loved it, so I've adopted it. So you might date somebody who is kind of a redneck, who doesn't have a job, and you're the one that had the job, and you're the one that had to be the breadwinner in the relationship. And so you finally got out of that relationship, and then you went on to get into a relationship with someone who was an attorney and who, made a lot of money and took you nice places, but he was still unavailable and narcissistic. And then you might date somebody who's a police officer, and, he looked really good, and, he treated you really nice at first, but it turns out that, he is a sex addict, who's unavailable emotionally and who doesn't know how to treat women well. And so that is an example of just reenacting your trauma story in your relationship. Okay, and I say to women, and I have a sticker in my office. I'm going to show it to you since I'm in my office today. Oops, dropped my phone. I have a sticker, and it's kind of a crude sticker because it kind of gets in your face, but it's a true sticker. Sometimes truth is crude. Truth hurts sometimes. We all attract losers. Some of us just don't keep them. And you can't read that yourself because it's backwards. But it's true. We all attract losers. Or let's say we all attract dysfunctional people. Some of us just don't stay in relationship with those people. And that's really important to make that distinction. So that is reenacting your trauma story in relationships. And this reenactment can take lots of different forms. And some of the reenactments that you do in relationship can be positive. But for the sake of what we're talking about, mostly they're negative and they keep you stuck. Okay, so that's all we're going to talk about today. We want to make these symptom videos short and sweet. And if you feel like you get stuck in the victim mode or in the rescuer mode, make sure you talk to your therapist and your support people about this. Because the last thing I'm going to say about reenacting is it's very, very subconscious. Many people don't realize they're reenacting their trauma story for decades. So if you can start to recognize this in your life and in your relationships, that's very exciting because you can get off that triangle and start to heal. Have a great day, guys. God bless.